Okay, people. So today I am joined by Bertie and Samantha Speirs,
Oh,
who are
it's
the
Spears. Sorry.
Spears.
Yeah.
Ah, God damn it. Hi, Bertie and Samantha Spears, the writers, directors of Midnight Taxi. Guys, thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate that.
Pleasure to be here, Kevin. Hi.
Awesome. So, Midnight Taxi is your feature directorial debut, right?
It is. Yes, it's our first feature on our own. So we're quite excited about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I mean, you both worked on like big things leading into this. So, does that change the way you approach this? Like I mean, you must have spoken to friends about them making their first features, but being on such large projects in the past, like, yeah, does that change this kind of anticipation, the feelings around this one?
I think definitely. Neither of us went to film school. So we've kind of worked for about a decade each in the industry and have been super fortunate to work on some big productions for Marvel and Cats. And it's a completely different beast when you're talking about those sort of budgets. But it's the best learning ground because you get to learn everything. You get to interact with everything. And I think for me, I won't speak for you, I'll let you speak in a second, but like I definitely gained confidence of understanding what was happening, how to run a set, knowing what was supposed to happen, what wasn't supposed to happen. So it was more just a comfort level than anything else. But obviously our film was not even approaching the complexity of like a Marvel film.
I think, yeah. And for me, I think it demystified where my own knowledge was. I think I was quite nervous about making a film on my own. And when I got to see the Hollywood machine up close, I realized there was no kind of secret sauce. It really just was lots of people putting in the work. And yes, they've got better gear. And yes, they've got many more people in the departments. But actually, the fundamentals of filmmaking, of actors in a scene, dialogue, the sun going down, stress on set, all those things, that isn't different. Would I have liked a much bigger crew? Absolutely. But it made me feel a bit more confident that we actually could pull it off, seeing it up close.
Now, going from that large crew, right, where there's someone and an assistant for every single facet of, right, going from that to then doing yours and be like, yo, where's the coffee lady? Like, where's the person that does the, oh shit, that's me. Like, does that kind of add any trepidation? Like knowing that there's no safety net here, right? This lives and dies by you now.
Yeah, it was extremely stressful. So first thing, you got to get a good coffee machine that's like a one-touch button. You don't want to mess around. It's got to be easy for everybody.
That's smart advice, people.
Yeah,
take heed.
That's the real stuff. Secondly, I think we'd done some shorts, we'd done some other things, so we knew we had enough skills to kind of muddle through most things. We did prepare for most eventualities of what could go wrong, and we did get lucky with a few things. We got lucky that there was no rain for the whole month while we shot.
Oh, damn.
Unbelievable.
That's good.
That said, it was the coldest April in history. It was sort of -2 degrees Celsius. What is that Fahrenheit? That's like 35 Fahrenheit. It was...
No, that's like 28 Fahrenheit.
28 Fahrenheit, yeah. So it was brutal. But because we can get through the cold, I wish we'd had assistance, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, there was definitely an element of going into it. I knew my skill set is kind of, I'm very good at multitasking. Like all the jobs I had leading up to then, I had learned how to multitask, how to prioritize. But when you're doing a film shoot that you're directing and then you're like, oh, there's no catering. So you have to wake up early because I cooked all the meals. So I would wake up early, cook everything. And then at mealtime, I would reheat everything because we took an hour off in the middle of the night for dinner. So we were having fantastic food, like full, here's your main and your two sides and your dessert. But it just ended up being a lot of work for things that I would have rather not have spent my time on when you have no sleep.
And we did try to preempt a lot of things. You know, we knew, oh, we're not going to have kind of camera assistants to recharge batteries. So we just made sure we had enough batteries ready at the start of the day, no matter what. Same with the storage. We never swapped cards. We just had really big cards. So we didn't have to think about it. We did as much kind of things like that to take things off our plate wherever we could.
That's smart.
So, yeah, that was.
But in the future, I already have like my hit list of crew that are coming on board right away.
I think because this film was so kind of guerrilla and so done on the streets, there are some rules where it's sort of, if there are 5 or less of you out on the road, you don't need to get permits for everything, as long as you're not creating a kind of massive public disturbance or something. So that was how we kind of got to make the film. So we couldn't have had a bigger crew, because if we tipped over into having, 10 people, we're in operation then. Now we need the police. Now we need way more money. It just wouldn't be viable. So, yeah, that's why we did it.
Okay. Now I read that you'd made the Splinter Cell short.
Yeah.
Right. Now, doing that and taking all of that on yourself, was that specifically in the mindset of, right, if I make a feature, I'm not going to have a big crew, so I need to know all of these different facets of the game?
Yes, it was partly thinking that, actually. It was trying to test myself. I'd done one other short before that where we'd had a lot more planning and prep time and a much bigger crew. And on the Splinter Cell Into the Shadows short, we wanted to kind of really play around and learn. And that group of actors are kind of friends with me, and we were just doing something that would look a bit different in the short film area, look a bit more commercial. So it was kind of to help everyone do something in their career they hadn't done before. So that was really a kind of learning ground short, exactly. And we didn't make that for festivals. We definitely made that for just YouTube and kind of fan culture. Yeah.
Right. So coming into this one, right, what kind of looked like the biggest challenge, and what ended up being the biggest challenge?
Good question. I think the anticipation of filming with vehicles, as much as we were going to, and not having a scene feel the same every time we were in a vehicle, knowing that around a third of the story was going to be shot in the black cab, and thinking, how do we make every scene have a different feel depending on the emotion, with different cinematography, with different editing, different sound even. So that was quite a process of figuring out, how are we physically going to pull this off? And then secondly, how are we going to artistically make it develop and be, changing as scenes progress through the film? We put in a ton of work with that, so many camera tests, so many frame tests. We had to figure out all the sight lines for all the cameras, and we shot it multicam with 4 cameras going at once. So it was a serious operation to figure out how to do that. I'm not aware of anyone that's done it before as well. Like, I'm sure they'd have, but we haven't seen someone do that at night with real driving in London. Much bigger films like Lock, they've done some cool stuff, but they're on low loaders and the actors aren't driving, and they've got different requirements, I suppose, or different stresses. What would you say is the biggest challenge?
I think going into the film, there were kind of 2 big challenges. The first one was just, can we get this done genuinely, of just, is the schedule and what we wanted to shoot achievable, which I think is a concern for everyone going into making a film, whether it's a short or a feature. You're going in thinking, I have X time, X money, will it all line up? Which is that's just always the biggest stress in my head, of just, will we actually finish this? And then the other big stress, even early on in prep, was I was concerned early about distribution, because it was something I had never really dealt with in a real way. You didn't have much experience with it. So early on, I was already looking at that mountain. And that was once you finish the film, everybody forgets that you still have a lot of time in post-production and then distribution. And that was a whole beast.
Yeah, and sorry to cut off. I think that the challenge that we didn't anticipate, the one that snuck up on us as we were making it, was the sheer volume of data that we'd recorded, because we had something like 30 terabytes at the end from all these cameras. We would set them recording for the drive, and then we'd have kind of 5-10 takes within each roll, so it would add up to enormous amounts in post. And then when you're running these long clips into the multicam through your editing suite, it's just crushing your computer. So it became a very frustrating edit with a lot of beach balls, a lot of even with proxy footage. That was hard, but we got through it. We did it.
Now, when you're dealing with multiple cameras, right, in the edit, how are you working through that? Right? How are you? Because you might run a scene and think that looks great, right, from one angle, but then another angle might be better, but you've already got a good scene. So how are you prioritizing the angle? Is it a case of, well, at the beginning we had that angle, so let's change it up and go from this different angle? Or are you literally going through every single one to be like, oh, is that the better shot? And it doesn't matter that you've already used that angle 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Bertie definitely speak to the actual edit, but I think something that helped both of us is when we lived in Los Angeles, one of the first shows I worked on was Last Man Standing, which was the Tim Allen sitcom, which is a multicam sitcom. So I got to watch how that worked up close and personal for, like whatever I was on for like 50 episodes or whatever. So you get to see live how the directors are choosing things, because you kind of edit live in front of a studio audience and then you do the edit afterwards.
Yeah.
And you also worked in post-production on that sitcom.
Yeah.
So we already kind of were familiar with the format of multicam, and it didn't intimidate us in that way. But then, in the edit you can speak to, because you did it.
I mean, we had an advantage that when people are in cars, they're not really moving; they're quite stationary. So we could set all the shots up to make sure that every camera angle would look nice for the whole scene, really. And then when we're determining why we're cutting to a new angle in the edit, we would watch it live with all sort of 4-8 camera angles at once to try to, see it live and trying to figure out how you do it if you were a television, live sports guy doing it. But then when we were finessing it and going back through it, you're always thinking, if this line is sort of a more emotional line or a more important beat, then usually we would come in closer to the face or have a more kind of frontal shot so you can see both eyes more clearly. If the characters are in a sort of more distant bit, then we would change that. And so a good example is with the Rachel character talking to the Eddie character. Their relationship starts off quite frosty in the film. So we shot scenes at the start through the perspex, through the glass. It's always trying to keep a literal physical distance between them and keep them smaller in the frame. And then as their relationship develops, we would deliberately jump the camera the other side of the glass. So now they're clean, and we'd get a bit closer to their faces, get to see their eyes a bit more, to kind of show them opening up and show a bit more of the performance. So that was the kind of thinking. And the other thing, to be frank, was cutting around problems. We hadn't anticipated, we kind of thought about, oh, we can't have this camera appear in the other camera's shot, or we can't have a reflection off the glass or off the mirrors. We hadn't thought so much about shadows. So as you're driving, a street light goes by, and then your camera shadow comes straight over an actor's face or something. So we could use a cutting to a different camera to hide that a shadow had just gone by. We did do that a little bit as well.
Yeah, and if people are really eagle-eyed, they will spot a few that definitely we just kept in, because they kind of look like parts of the cab. If you don't know it's a camera shadow, you're not going to think it is.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. With the advances with AI and everything now, can those things be taken out, or is it still this big issue?
I honestly don't know. I'm not experienced enough in those brand new AI software packages to tell you. I would be hesitant to think it could do it, because as the shadow's kind of going over a person's face, there's so many kind of small depth changes going on that I think it would be quite a tricky shot to fix. On a static seat or something flat, or I think that would be okay. But with the person moving independently and the depth in their face, it's a lot for the AI to figure out at once. Maybe you could do a kind of deep fake of their own face over, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's quite there yet for that.
Oh man, yeah, definitely things that you don't think about, I guess, when you're putting all of this stuff together.
Yeah.
So many.
Oh boy. Now, we're using black cabs. Was there a reason you thought we're going black cab rather than like your Uber, your, you know what I mean, your mini cab, your that kind of thing?
You mean
yeah, I can. Yeah, no, we the black cab is just quite an iconic London thing. It's like a London bus. You see them, you see them all over the city. I also at the time had been taking quite a lot of black cabs after late nights at work. So like 3 a.m. going through London. And when you're in the new ones, they just had that really great sunroof and the city just looked so cool. And I was intrigued by the cab drivers and just the level of training that they have to go through, because it's insane the amount of knowledge the cab drivers have. So I just thought it was way more interesting to me and to you, I assume, than just an Uber driver. That's a different world. It's a different thing in my mind. So yeah.
I think as well, we were thinking when we were initially conceiving with the idea, we were thinking black cab drivers, they're kind of invisible in London. You know, you don't really notice if one's on your street. You're not freaked out if there's one just parked at the end of the road. It's so normal to see one. Whereas if you see a random vehicle loitering somewhere with the engine on at 4 a.m., that's a bit more, immediately raises alarm and suspicion. We kind of wanted this character to be a kind of ghost. Like he can go where he wants. You're not thinking about that. But if he's potentially dangerous, then okay, that's a different thing. That's more, you know, he can blend in but still be dangerous. So that was the thinking.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Right? Because yeah, you see cabs all the time, but a car, you don't know it's an Uber, right? You don't know it's a mini. It's just this weird car just being like, yo, what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I also guess a black cab gives you more space to maneuver with cameras and everything like that. You know, it's not so bad on the back having to hunch down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
When, you know, you're putting this together, was there any thought to lay out the relationship with Eddie, Trevor, and Rachel more? Because we don't really get time frames or anything like that. Now, I think you get it, right? We understand, but was there any hesitance on that, like worrying that, oh, will the viewers get this? Will they understand what's happening here?
Yeah, so I think when designing, there were a few things at play when we were designing that kind of trio of how they relate to each other. And part of it was I didn't want the focus to be on Trevor too much, for obvious plot reasons. And the entire film, it's kind of supposed to be you're jumping into, it's almost a slice of life. It's not, I didn't want to bog down the audience too much with like, and here's the backstory for each character. I wanted to trust the audiences to just kind of figure it out, we all have so much media literacy now to be like, I don't need to spell out every detail of a person's backstory for people to make the correct assumptions or correct enough assumptions. There's a lot of ambiguity intentionally about the nature of the relationship between Eddie and Rachel, for example. That's intentional because I think I've had people think it's very romantic. Some people think it's very platonic. And I enjoy that because it was written to be ambiguous.
Yeah. And I think we were also trying to keep it always from Eddie's point of view alone. So we're kind of always following his journey. And in the kind of world of the film, those, you know, the Rachel and the Trevor character, they don't see each other that frequently in this world. They know who each other is, but that sort of shared history is further back in the past. And we didn't want to get bogged down into flashbacks or into, we wanted to get straight into the film with the murder mystery side of it. And I think if we'd overly hammered that point, it would have foreshadowed things too much.
Yes, and it is a screenplay that is written entirely from Eddie Carter's point of view. He is in every single scene. The entire movie it's his version. So we never switch perspectives, which you would have to do to kind of get more of that information naturally.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh God, my mind just went blank there. I had something. I was just like, "Oh, what about?" And yeah, mine just went blank. When you know, you're putting all of this together, how easy was it to get that consultancy? Because I thought it was interesting that you worked with a black cab driver, right? Because I mean, a lot of times we watch stuff. And I get it must be the same for everyone around the world when they see their city, their country on, and they show those scenes, like maybe coming from the airport to the home, and you're just like, what kind of route is that? Like, there's no way you'd go past those places. What's happening here? But this did feel like we're driving around London. It did feel realistic and authentic. So it's great that you worked with a driver on that. But how easy was it making that connection, building that relationship?
I mean, getting Tom involved was actually very easy because we'd been watching his YouTube channel, Tom the Taxi Driver. Thoroughly recommend him because he's the best black cab driver on YouTube, I think. So because it was the pandemic, we knew he wasn't doing his usual amount of work. So we messaged him to get involved and he was immediately up for it. And then in terms of, we also use this channel actually for a lot of the research because he goes into the detail of the minutiae of the job. So we kind of got a lot of little things from that. And then when we brought him in, we discussed the routes for each individual journey so that we could do a quiet route that was consistent.
I had done a lot of my own kind of driving around London at night, trying to think through the routes because I wanted to represent the entirety of London. And we came at London from kind of interesting perspectives because Bertie is a native, born and bred Londoner. I'm obviously not, but I've lived here for years now. So we had kind of different perspectives going in. So I spent like so many nights, weeks of nights, just driving around and thinking, how do I represent all these different neighborhoods of London in a single film? Because when you watch some films in London, you're only going to get, oh, that's Hampstead. We stayed in Hampstead, and I didn't want that. So I kind of assigned characters to different parts of the city. And then I'd go out and I'd drive routes that I could make circular in about 10-minute circular things. So you could get 2 takes easily within a circuit. And that was, I basically just had a bunch of mapped routes out. And I think we had to change one on the night. And Tom did come in very handy for that because of construction, naturally. Suddenly construction. So there was a lot of intentional thoughts of, this is happening in East London, this is happening in West London, and they don't cross. Like we never bring, Rachel moves from East London to Central London. She never goes west. And something like that. Like we did keep them in their worlds, which is kind of how London feels. So, and
because some of the characters reoccur in the film, they always are on the same route for consistency. So, and it was easy for us to film then because we are literally just changing a costume but doing the same loop.
Okay. No, I did like the minutiae we see within that, right? Eddie's routine, those stops that you do, it's quiet, I'm gonna stop here for a break, I'm gonna do this, bum bum bum. Like there's when you speak to a taxi driver, that's what they will tell you. You know what I mean? It's not all fares constantly. Sometimes you have those quiet fits, you stop off, catch up with people.
They've got to recharge these electric cabs. And, they have these green kind of cab shelters that are a very historical thing all over London. And so all those stop points were actually where the green cab shelters are in the background. And we didn't hammer that, but we know that black cab drivers, when they watch the film, they'll all go, oh, we saw exactly what you've done. Like there's the Warwick Avenue green shelter. There's the St. John's Wood one.
Yep.
So they're all, it's a little Easter egg that.
So was that a bit of advice from Tom, or was that something that you'd picked up yourself?
A bit of both. During the lockdown, some of the cab shelters stayed open and they sell really good sandwiches. So I would walk around.
It's like bacon butties.
Yeah, bacon buddies. And I was like, these are really cool. And when I suggested to Tom that this is what I was going to do, he was fully on board. He was like, that's great. Like, get them all in. I think we got 4 into the film. So.
But it would also make sense why 2 drivers with Trevor, like why they would meet at that point, because they both know about it. So
yeah, no, that was good. That was good. I definitely was surprised at the end. Right? I was, there was that little that that we throw in. I was like, oh shit, okay. Right. I would, because when you're watching something like this, you're always trying to work it out, right? You're trying to Hercule Poirot it yourself. And so you're thinking, where could this go? Who could be the person? Have we maybe just seen them in the background? Like, where's it? And then when you did the thing, I was like, oh, okay.
Red herrings going on.
Yeah. Yeah, especially that last journey.
Yeah.
Right? That throws a load of different things out there, and you're like, shit, should I start again? Have I missed things? Like, what is this? Like writing all of that and getting it, so it's not completely obvious and there's this ambiguity. How easy was that to craft? Like, how many stabs at it did you have to take, do you think?
Ooh, I knew the ending before I wrote the film. So I knew that last scene. We worked on that last scene a lot, but I knew essentially what was going to happen in that last scene and what we had like 3 main clues were going to be clarified in that scene. And that was from like draft 1.
We always wanted you questioning the lead characters, if they were the bad guy. Like, we wanted you thinking, oh, the filmmakers, they're trying. We did what that was obviously deliberate from the first draft.
Yeah. And I think, we ended up with something like 14 drafts of the script before you go into shooting. So it changed a lot. The ending was always essentially the same. And it was tricky to get the balance right, especially in the edit, because there are things that we cut in the edit that were subplots that served the main plot that we hadn't planned on cutting, but we just ran into an issue where one piece of a critical subplot didn't work. And we had to cut the whole thing.
The whole subplot,
the whole subplot. So then you kind of have to, you're rewriting the film a little bit in the edit to kind of put enough back in. But I like murder mysteries where you're basically told at the beginning of the movie kind of who are the characters in play here. I really enjoy that. So that was kind of the setup as well. But yeah, the ending I always knew would be that.
And we did have, other those characters like the undercover detective character and the sort of street thug characters as these sort of red herrings. And that there was a lot of debating about how many times we should have a sort of thuggy character reappear, the Dormer character, the James Dormer character, and how hard we should go on or not. I hope we judged it correctly, but that was a lot of back and forth about
a lot of back and forth on that.
Right. Who is your go-to murder mystery? Right? Like, what do you like? Are you a Agatha Christie fan? You know what I mean? James Patterson? Like, what are you jumping on?
I know who you're going to say. You're going to say Seven.
Seven is my go-to murder mystery film. I love the movie Seven.
That's a great film.
Yeah, film-wise, I love that. I love Chinatown, LA Confidential. Like, I'm a sucker for these great mysteries. I do love Agatha Christie, and I grew up watching reruns of Murder, She Wrote. So I think that has kind of gone into my head quite a bit. And Law and Order, obviously, as an American, that's just staple television watching in the 90s and early 2000s. So, Yeah, but I'll read anything. My current murder mystery favorite, honestly, is I love the Richard Osman Thursday Murder Club series. So
Which is a film soon.
yeah, it's gonna be a film soon. That's my current favorite little series of murder mysteries.
Okay, I've not come across those ones.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been doing Mark Geary. I can't think of how to pronounce his last name, but he's got the Grey Man series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I've been enjoying those books, and the Terminal List ones, Jack Carr's Terminal List books.
That's awesome.
Yeah. A little murder mystery is very, because there is that doubt, right? There is that doubt in the film where you are kind of questioning like Eddie's relationship to everything that is going on. Hold on, let me have my phone on silent, so I don't even know. Put it on do not disturb and it still disturbed you. But yeah, no, I thought that was interesting the way we're following Eddie, and there is the ambiguity, right? Now, one thing I do find interesting, it's the synopsises, right? Because sometimes you look at them and there's too much information, or the information isn't quite right. How much control over that do you have?
It depends where you're looking. We have control over things that like we put on our website, for example, but because we signed a distribution deal, so it's all now kind of being handled by our distribution company and the PR firm that they're working with. So we don't get a lot of control anymore, which is also weird to kind of give up a film that you've had so much control over.
Yeah, that must be a little frustrating.
It's an adjustment, because I think, because we've done it all ourselves, it's so strange to then have people come in with sort of discussions about the trailer or whatever. And that's been a learning curve for us. But it hasn't been very good so far on the whole, I would say. Net positive so far.
Okay. I mean, what are your views actually when it comes to a trailer? Because a lot of times, there's been times in the past because I stopped watching trailers because I found, that a lot of times they either give away the film or it sets it up as something that it's not. The amount of times back in the day, I remember watching a trailer and thinking, oh, looks like a great comedy. And then you're watching, wait, this isn't a comedy. Like, what is happening here? So as filmmakers, what's the viewpoint on a trailer?
So my sort of attitude to it is, I think you want to give the audience the core hook of the film. What is the main beat that's starting the story? What's your end of first act beat? And I think you've got to show that in the trailer so that they get an idea of where, what genre we're in, what's the story about. And then I think it's about giving a mood that reflects the film. So, in our film, that's actually not too difficult in a way. We're doing noir, we're doing night, we're doing detective story, we're doing amateur detective, like a taxi driver outbound. So all of that is shown in our trailer. But we deliberately don't want to get too into the reads of the specifics of all the characters he's going to encounter, and more hint at it. And so I think what we were going for is the trailer itself has some mystery to it. Like, what is this story? I know he discovers a dead body. I know he becomes a detective. What else is there to it? And that's where we kind of wanted to leave you and just, make the film look exciting and show its scale, show how much of London's going to be in the film. I think that was the main thought process behind it, really. We didn't show anything in the trailer from the last 25, 30 minutes of the film. And
we technically have one shot, but it's a face. It's not, it doesn't give anything away. Trailers are really tricky because there's also so many cooks in the kitchen with trailers about like how long it should be, what you should show, how much time should be dialogue, how much music, and everybody has a completely different opinion on this. Everybody has their own spreadsheets telling you what's going to track best. So you just run into okay, well, now we need to hit exactly 90 seconds to do X, and you can't show this and you can't show this character, but we need, 35% of the shots to be speaking and X, number of women. And you run into all that. We didn't have that too much on this one at all, partly because we did the first trailer ourselves, and then our distributor worked from that.
I think they liked the first trailer, so
so we were very lucky in that regard. But I've seen trailer creation on other projects up close of all sorts of budget levels, and it can just it's so complicated. Like the amount of time people will spend on a trailer is like what we spend on the film.
Trailer. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's a little crazy out there. With Eddie, becoming this sleuth, when you're trying to map that aspect of the film out, what is the fault, right? Because I think you don't want to make it too easy, but then it's what could he legitimately find?
Yes.
Right? There's, some of that information you wonder is like, would that be on the black web? Like, how easy could it be to uncover some of these things, right? So what was the mindset going into that aspect of the film?
I think for Eddie, because he's an amateur detective, and amateur is all caps in this case, I wanted him to just not be very good in the way of like, he's a smart character and he's trying hard, but he doesn't actually succeed very much without the help of actual professionals. And we do have a journalist character to kind of fill that role. And that's partly because at the time when we were writing it, getting against the true crime wave of everybody thinking they could solve all these crimes from their laptop. And I just want to show that it's not that easy. Like you're going to, he confronts somebody wrongly and has a bad outcome with that.
It's interesting because you asked us a question about us not having a safety net as filmmakers or no backup or anything. And that's literally the exact thing we were trying to put into his character. It's if he gets into trouble, he's suddenly incredibly vulnerable. He's all by himself and he can get in over his head very quickly. And we wanted to show that a couple of times. It added that kind of peril element straight away. I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of we also ended up at the point where he had to solve the crime because only he could solve the crime in the end. And the end does get there. Only he knows enough about what's going on to get to the resolution. And that was important as well. I didn't want to feel like, and he Googled correctly.
Yeah.
And if he's sort of psychotic, all the sleuthing could also be the opposite.
Yeah.
He actually could be all doing. So we're playing with it all the time.
Yeah, I did think that aspect of things did make a lot of sense, right? Because it's not a case of, oh, anyone could have found that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that was definitely a nice little a little touch in there. The score, how was that? Right, working and finding something that worked like this.
That was actually an excellent, we really enjoyed that part of the process. So we put it out. We don't know any composers ourselves, so we put it out on a public internet thing for the job, and we got, I think, something like 300 responses.
Oh damn.
Overnight.
Yeah. And we spent about, I don't know, nearly 2 weeks going through everyone's samples, reading everything they'd sent us, because it was our baby and we wanted to get the best person for the job. And Jake Bradford Sharp, who we ended up going with, he completely understood the vibe of the film from what we'd sent them. And he had so many good ideas and good other references for films or soundtracks that he liked that were in the same vein. And we started working with him actually by kind of saying, okay, here's one scene in the film. Just have a crack at it, completely free. Just do whatever you want, but we want to see what you do. And he came back with an amazing, like he already got it 95% of the way there. He listened to everything and listened to all of our reference pieces that we've been working with. And then it was a pleasurable experience working with him because we would kind of argue through the whole film of how much music, where there should be no music, even down to sometimes how large the instrumentation would be, and whether a character would have a theme or not have a theme. You know, Rachel has a little theme tune kind of melody to her, and how much it would play underneath the dialogue or not at all. It was really great working with him. And I think, I think it's always kind of an innate thing, really, music. I think you just kind of have to go with your gut about it, and you can't be too technical about it. It's more, does this feel right for the emotion of the scene? Does this kind of music match where we should be? So we were always thinking about, it's nighttime, we're isolated. Big orchestral score wouldn't have suited that. If we'd done a kind of jazzy piano, that would have made everyone think of Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver. You know, it was sort of, how do we keep it in its own area, give the film its own identity? And Jake came up with the kind of instrumentation that he could ramp it up or down depending on the scene, but it always kept the kind of vibe throughout. That was really it.
Yeah, that was really fun. At that point, it had just been Bertie and I for like a year just working on the film. So when we finally got someone new to work with, I think it also helped us kind of find a second or third or fourth wind to like keep going through the rest of it. So that it was a really great experience.
Yeah.
I mean, how different is scoring a feature to, you know, the documentaries that you've done in the past?
I mean, it's just, I'd say, more to do with the volume. Just the sheer amount of work is the bigger thing. You know, you're not going from a track to a track or a bit of stock music to stock music, or, you know, I'd worked with composers before in short films, but nothing for this length. And so you're developing themes throughout. And we listen to a lot of film scores at home. And it's this thing of, if you introduce a motif, it's like, when's that motif going to play off later in the film? And how's it?
Yeah.
There was a lot of that kind of discussion. I think, how is it different? It's not that different. I mean, you're trying to essentially help guide the emotion for the audience through the music. And that would be the same in a doc or a feature.
Or short or anything.
Yeah.
It's just longer.
Exactly. And you have more time to play with developing it. Yeah. Because the 3 or 4 different motifs we have in the film, in the final confrontation scene, they're all there at different points, coming in quite loudly. That's the kind of the payoff.
Okay. Right. No, that's cool. How was the casting with this one?
Casting was, honestly, it was so much fun. I think we were surprised at how much we enjoyed the casting process. This was the first time either of us had gone through it in depth, because it was a bit different than doing shorts. Partly the volume that we got for responses, because we posted some of them open, some of them closed. We went to agents and other things, but for the open calls, we were inundated with like hundreds and hundreds of actors. And we decided to go through every single person, show reel, resume, self-tape. So we did, and we did keep everyone up to date with where they were in the process, because it's that horrible thing of, all jobs should do that. Like, don't just leave people on red. So we just spent several nights. It was all virtual, because at that point it was we were still locked down, so you couldn't do in-person casting. So we did lots of video auditions, and it was really fun.
Yeah, a few of the roles in the film were people I'd also worked with before, and having seen them work up close, we knew, even when we were writing the script, we knew, it's probably going to be this person, actually, because we know they've got the ability, they're going to be great. And specifically for the lead role, we knew we wanted to have someone we already knew for that role, because it's so much trust if they're going to be driving a vehicle, and they have to learn the whole script. And Ladi Emeruwa, who is the lead, he comes from a theatre background originally. He played Hamlet for the Globe Theatre on the world tour, so he's very experienced. He's fantastic at learning lines, and he's just a lovely guy to have around. And we were very aware that role would have to be the kind of actor who could be very good at other actors coming in, very welcoming, very calm. He's got to deal with a lot when we're busy with cameras and equipment. He's got to do a lot of that work, and he was excellent at doing that. And we got really lucky with the people that we brought in, because they all took it very seriously, and they learned their lines. They were great attitudes actually across the board, and great performances. We did. I think it was really in the casting process where we did most of that work, because we did do multiple rounds of casting to make sure these people kind of got the role and were good at responding to direction quickly. But we had to have faith as well that they would be able to get it done in 1 or 2 takes or 3 takes, because we weren't going to have the luxury of time. So people that were good at that.
Because we had one, again, it was COVID, so we didn't have the luxury of in-person rehearsing. So we were able, for a hair and makeup test, to do with Scarlett Price, Eddie Air, and Ladi, to kind of have them come around at
Rachel, Trevor,
and Eddie come around for a hair and makeup test, and also run the scenes with all of them. So we were able to kind of do, a socially distanced, with all the windows open, everybody around a table, rehearsal. And that was just one that was also fun, because for most of the film, people were so isolated. We were pretty good at keeping everybody separated for COVID restrictions. And the cab helped with that, because the back is separated by a glass barrier.
Yeah. Now, so you've got your main cast. When it came to the fares, right, the passengers, what was the fault with that? Because when you're in such a big multicultural place, right, it's finding that balance. So what's the fault when you're thinking, okay, we're gonna have these different people pass through the cab?
Some of them are actors. Some of the one-off passengers are actors that we cast, and we just did, we didn't cast with any ethnicity or gender or age in mind for a lot of the roles.
For every role, actually, really. Age was the one we did think about, because that speaks to life experience.
And some of the roles specifically had to be women. But aside from that, we were very open to anyone. And then a lot of the passengers who passed through were just people that we knew who were up for getting in a cab that I was driving at 9 p.m. So there's a lot of it was just texting people like, hey, do you want to ride around your block? I'm in your neighborhood.
And a real behind the scenes thing, it was so low budget that we did all of it in one night. So all those sort of additional passengers, it was who's free on Thursday evening. God. And at sort of 3 a.m. So who do you know who will pick up the phone then?
They gotta be good friends.
Filtered into it.
Exactly.
But you drove the cab for those scenes.
Yeah. Anytime that we didn't have Ladi, so that night it was just me. And anytime we weren't shooting, I was the cab driver. So I was just comfortable driving the vehicle. I actually really liked it. Kind of bummed we don't have it anymore, to be honest. And I got pulled over by the police once for not having a cabbie license, which you're totally allowed to do, but they were very confused. We had a fun 5-minute interaction.
That shot is actually in the film. Because it's one of the characters, especially one of our friends.
It was one of our friends.
And that you were just having a chat about walking dogs or something. And then, you see the blue lights spin up behind, and that is you about to be pulled over. People did try to hail me a couple times, not too often, and looked really annoyed when I wouldn't pull over with an empty cab. I'm like, well. It's important to mention at this point that the cab was decommissioned, and we couldn't turn the yellow taxi lights on. They were actually, the bulbs are literally removed. So whenever you see the taxi bulb on, that's actually Tom Hutley's taxi in close-up, and we're just getting one quick shot from his cab, and then sort of tricking it over. Lots of little things.
I didn't know that. I didn't know, they take the lights out and that kind of thing.
They have a lot of regulations on the cabs, as they should. It is, TFL heavily regulates the drivers and the cabs themselves. You can't have a fare box, you can't have a working cab light if you're a private taxi. So, and once it's decommissioned, it can never be recommissioned again in London. Which is key, because we got this cab from Coventry. Yes.
So it could be recommissioned in London.
It had never been commissioned in London.
Yeah. So. Right. So many inside baseball things.
Like, what's it like to drive? Is it similar to a normal car? Or is there any difference?
It's huge, and I wasn't the best driver of it, I have to say. I clipped the very back of it on a corner and scraped the paint. It was fine. It wasn't a dent or anything. It buffed out. It was okay. But the turning radius is probably the best on anything on the road. It's incredible. So you can do a U-turn in about 3 lanes.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah. And it converted me to wanting an electric vehicle if we ever get a car again. I was like, oh, this is so quiet and so nice. I enjoyed it. I would happily have it as a personal vehicle.
I think when they designed the black cab, there's a rule that it's got to be able, at the Savoy Hotel in London, it's got to be able to do a U-turn around that drop-off point. So they have to make sure the turning radius is that good because it's a requirement for the cab drivers to do it.
I think. Not really sure.
Yeah, and the vehicle itself was a pleasure. And it had a heated front seat, which was useful because when it's that cold at night, either stay hot even if we were opening the doors and putting cameras on. People in the back seat, Ladi didn't want to tell them about it because he didn't want the other actors to get too jealous.
It was like really a nice Swish car, to be totally honest, like kind of any other car.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay. I don't like the quietness.
Really?
Oh my day. Like, I've nearly been run over by electric cars several times. It's in, and one of the worst was I literally just proposed to my girlfriend.
Oh,
right. So we're going for a meal and we're like, oh my God, this is so great. And suddenly she's yanking me. And I'm just like, and then I just feel a woof. I was like, I didn't hear anything. What's going on? I heard nothing. It was like, geez.
Fantastic for filming, though. You know, we had to get the dialogue live. That was why we thought we'll go with the electric over the diesel. You know, it'd be quieter. I can now hear black cabs from sort of 2 blocks away because they've got a very distinctive kind of whine as they accelerate or they brake, and they've got this ding 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 when you open the door. And so now I just hear it. I hear it on our street at 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh, it's a black cab.
Oh dear, oh dear. Oh man. So the film, it's just about to drop to the world, right? What's that feel like, right? Knowing that this thing that you worked on for so long and your first feature is about to be birthed into the world.
Yeah, it's surreal. It's really exciting. I mean, it's been so much work. And at this point, there's a part of us that is kind of happy that we got it to this point. That we can now feel like we've accomplished something with it, no matter what happens in the market. We're kind of thrilled that we got it to this point. I'm thrilled that people will see it. I'm so happy we managed to get it into a place where people will be able to watch it. I am nervous. I think any filmmaker says they're not nervous before it comes out would be lying. But yeah, I think it's a pleasure. It's an honor to have gotten this because it's been our dream for decades now. And I'm hopeful that we can use it to springboard into the next film. And so, yes.
With more crew
and very different. Yeah. Yes, the 23rd it's coming out. So yeah, not long.
Have you screened it to many black cab drivers? Are you having a special cabbie screening or anything like that?
I wish we had the kind of means to do that. So right now, I think Tom Hutley, who helped us make the film, is the only black cab driver who's seen it himself. I think he enjoyed it. He was quite nice.
I hope so.
It. Yeah.
I'm sure there will be. I know for a fact we are going to get this is not exactly how this works comments, because there are things that we changed for logistical reasons we know Tom already flagged them. Yeah. We know that we're going to get some of those.
Yeah.
I just hope that it comes across that like we like the taxi drivers in London. We like the London taxi. So it is an earnest attempt to be, we wanted to show London and we wanted to show a cool profession.
And it's not a kind of a documentary about cab driving.
No.
So first and foremost a murder mystery, and the cab driving is kind of like a setting. So it's that way around. I think, you know, it's more for the murder mystery fan than it is necessarily a black cab driver who's hoping to see a documentary on his work.
Well, I mean, nothing about the driving really jumped out like, oh, well, he reached his wrong hand to do that thing. They got that wrong. No one does, you know, nothing like that. I mean, I don't drive either, so, you know, there is that. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, all of that seemed legit, you know what I mean? So I think you'll be okay on that front for sure.
Hopefully.
I hope so. I think it'll be, I know one thing already about the cab drivers are going to be annoyed that the passengers do not ask about the destination before they get into the cab. I know it's been flagged. It's a filming license that we took.
Yeah, it was because we had to shoot so quickly, and we just didn't have time to pull the mics out to do it because we'd already embedded the mics in the vehicle. That was why. It's a boring reason.
Yeah, it's a boring reason. But no, I mean, I'm excited for people to see it. I oscillate between extreme excitement and extreme nerves pretty much every hour of the day at this point. So.
Oh dear. All right, so when the film does drop, what next? Right? What's ruminating in those creative minds? Have we got a film, a TV series? Do we have a documentary? Like, where do you think you'll go next?
We've got 3 scripts in development right now. One is finished. One's about 80% there, and one's about 40% there. And I don't want to kind of talk about them too much yet because we haven't, you know, we're not at a level of confidence with them, or gone through enough drafts. Broadly speaking, one is another sort of murder mystery detective story, but the setting is again very unusual, and this time it's on a
submarine.
Close.
I wish.
It's on a moon at the edge of the solar system. So that's quite different. Then we've got one that's a sort of horror vibe, creepy, psychological thing. So again, it sort of has a link, and that's in a dollhouse.
Yeah.
And then the last one is kind of about a rebellious, we're calling it, the working title of it is Banksy Batman. And it's about a kind of rebellious one-off person who, through art, wants to, I don't know, rebel against the system and accidentally creates a movement that they then have to deal with. Yeah,
so I think, and that's an order of kind of completion. And it will most likely be this other murder mystery sci-fi thriller that we're currently working on financing for. So hopefully getting that one going, and anything else. And I mean, we're always writing, so we also have you know, TV projects in the works, and we have a theater show and stuff like that. So tons of stuff going on, but hopefully from this feature to a next one as the major move.
Awesome. Oh, one other thing I'm, you know, just curious about, right? Because I think making anything with anyone can be precarious, right? It's being in someone's company for so long and all of that kind of thing. Now you've done shorts together and all of this, but what was that like as a couple, right? Making a feature film, and your first feature, right? Small crew, all of these different constraints, which can stress out, you know, anybody, right? So did you put anything in place to be like, all right, so we're not like pulling each other's hair out when we get home, we gotta, you know, approach things like this? Like, what was, you know what I mean? What was that like?
I love you stirring the pot here as our marriage. That's wonderful. Straight in with the serious questions. We didn't have a formal chat about kind of breaking down how we would split jobs or anything. I think we have watched so many films together over, I don't know, 12 years now, that we know each other's views on things quite well, and we're quite good at, I mean, it sounds bad, but like arguing things through to try to find out the best way. And I think that's what the creative process is for most people. In terms of on the day, there were flashpoints of stress where we did disagree, and we, you know, usually we would have to come back and think about it. And logic was usually the reason we would go. If we couldn't get past an impasse, it would be like, okay, well, which one can we shoot right now? Which one creates a problem? I remember there was one where we had a location. You wanted to do a thing. I can't even remember where it was, on some street. I wanted to do it at St. Paul's Cathedral. And your thing was, we can't shoot at St. Paul's Cathedral, we'll get in trouble. And then as we were making the film, we were going, I think we could shoot at St. Paul's Cathedral and it would look great. And the location's got parking nearby. and so then logic won out that St. Paul's was actually going to happen. But it wasn't a kind of an aggressive fight. It was more, we just got to that place.
Yeah. And I mean, we have a very good shorthand with each other. So even when we get frustrated or angry, we're pretty good at de-escalating or just, hitting pause on that. Like, of course, we definitely had our moments, especially when you're not on set, like in some bits of prep and post, when you're just at home and you can start bringing up other things like that. You didn't take the trash out yesterday either. So then you have to really walk it back before you end up in your territory. But no, I mean, we work very well together. And we did do a thing of, we were on so much for the film, like 18-hour days, and we alternate our sleeping schedules a little bit so that we could be awake at different times to do things. And we did take our one day off in the first week, and we went, right, we're not going to talk about the film for 4 hours. We're going to watch somebody else's film. And we ended up watching Palm Springs, which was really great. And it was just a nice.
No, I enjoyed that.
I think as well, like a lot of when we were actually making it in the middle of the shoot, a lot of the camera rigging in the cab was me. And then I would be calling out to anyone and everyone to help. So if we were putting a sort of suction cup or a magnet on something and I needed a spare pair of hands, then I'd be calling to you or to our sound man or even our makeup lady to kind of help with that small part. But I was quite locked in on that side of it. And then you were kind of doing a great job talking to the actor about preparing them for the scene. So we were both, on the technical and the creative side or on the boss side all at once. It was too many hats for both of us. We were a bit overwhelmed at times. I think having a first AD and a UPM would have helped a lot.
First AD is top of my hiring list.
Yeah. But and as for us disagreeing, I think it helped having Ladi around all the time because he's the calmest man you'll ever meet, and so you kind of can't stay mad when he's around.
Yeah, he was great to have.
Yeah.
Hey, well, you made it work, right? You got a great film out there, so it's all gravy, man. It's all gravy. So people, mark down the 23rd of July in your calendar, because that's when Midnight Taxi drops. How can people keep track of you, the film, and everything else that's going down?
The best way to keep track of us is our official website, which is little-nipper.com. It's our production company website. It's where we post most things. We also have an Instagram, Little Nipper Productions, which is will be updated more. I'm in charge of that, and I'm just not the best at social media, but I am going to start updating it more, especially with the film coming out with updates. So that's probably the two best places to find it.
And if people want to contact us, they can go through Instagram or directly off the website and just email us, and we'll get back to them if we can, if we have time.
Always happy.
Yeah, we're happy. Right now, we're happy to be in touch.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, people, make sure you go check out the film, check out Bertie and Samantha, right? And looking forward to seeing what comes next, guys.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Cheers.
No worries. And hopefully we'll have another conversation about the next project.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time. And all the success with the film.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.